AI Mentors is brought to you by Alldus International, covering your business's staffing, consulting, and networking needs. Our podcast, AI Mentors, brings you the leading minds in AI, sharing their story, their success, and their advice. Focusing on fast-tracking you to the top, AI Mentors cuts through the hype to help you kickstart your data science career.
You're listening to AI Mentors. I'm your host, JP Valentine. Our guest today is Bob Bress. Bob is the Vice President of Analytics and Business Intelligence for Freewheel. Bob, welcome to the show.
Great, thanks for having me.
Sure. Bob, let's start. Just give us a quick background of yourself, how you got involved in technology, and then tell us a little bit about your role at Freewheel.
Well, I've been in the analytics space for over 20 years. The last 9 of those years have been in the media space. Freewheel today is an ad technology company within Comcast. And Freewheel came together through a number of tech startup acquisitions that Comcast did over the last number of years. I was with one of those startups, which is known as Visible World. Prior to being in the media space, I was in a variety of different industries. I worked in the energy industry for a number of years, and I worked at GE for a period of time in their research and development center. And so I've had a number of different experiences. That the common thread has really been in the development of analytics to support business problems.
Excellent, thank you. So most people listening will know who Comcast are, Comcast, NBC, but can you give us a little bit more detail of what Freewheel does,
Sure.
The origins behind it, and maybe some examples of some projects, cool stuff you're doing?
Definitely. So Freewheel is an advertising technology company, and we like to think of Freewheel as powering the TV advertising ecosystem. And so if you think of television today, it's changed a lot in the past few years, right? There's traditional television that where you're watching live programming. There's also a lot more on-demand options in terms of how you consume content. And there are different apps, there's different mechanisms for how you consume television today. However you consume it, there are ads being served, and Freewheel really powers the way that advertisers and agencies can connect with TV advertising inventory to reach their targeted audiences. And it really covers the full gamut of the technology that we offer, but the core of it is really providing a marketplace that connects advertisers, agencies, and TV advertising inventory.
Interesting. So to help better understand that, this would be if you're a certain demographic in certain types of shows, no longer is it just generic ads sent out to the entire ecosystem. The ads that me as the viewer that I will see is specific and targeted, and Freewheel are the brains behind that.
Yeah, certainly the trend has been toward much more targeted advertising. There is still the traditional TV advertising that our systems support. One of the exciting projects we're working on now is scheduling ads on traditional NBCU networks, and how can we do that in an optimized way that best allow the advertisers and agencies to hit the audiences that they're targeting. But beyond that, we also support addressable advertising platforms that are targeting much more specific audiences, whether that be on traditional live television or more on-demand options.
I understand. Excellent. So you mentioned in your introduction that although you've worked in various industries, the common denominator has been analytics. Mm-hmm. Can you give us a bit more detail of why you resonated towards that, and what about your job that you love?
Yeah, I've always been a numbers guy, and I think the piece of it that's particularly interesting to me is sort of the problem-solving aspect of the job. And so a lot of what we do here, in fact, is really trying to figure out how we can use data and analytics to solve a business problem in a creative way. I think the big change in the media industry, particularly in the TV industry over the past few years, is there's a lot more data available than there used to be. And so with that data comes the ability to do many more interesting things in terms of how we manage yield within advertising, how we forecast how advertising will perform and who will view those ads. There's a lot more opportunity to really bring some of the latest in AI, machine learning, and data science to the media space.
Yeah, look, it's very exciting. I think people don't realize that a lot of cutting edge use cases for data science and AI is being driven by e-commerce because it's agile and it's quick to impact technologies where more traditional industries like banking and healthcare can take a lot longer to implement new technology, where e-commerce and advertising especially are sort of leading the charge with their utilization of data. So that's great to see. So I want to talk a little bit now on the mentor side, because having worked in different industries and built yourself into a position of VP, you've got some great insight. So one of the things I wanted to understand is getting value out of data science, because as we know, a lot of it is research driven and it comes down to the quality of data. So can you give us some insight and some guidance on how you've been able to get the most value out of data science in the roles that you've held?
Yeah. I find that a lot of the projects we work on really start with a concept or an idea or a hypothesis that we have a business problem, we have access to some data, we think there's a way to leverage this data to help us make decisions in a smart way. When we go into these projects, we often go in not knowing whether there really is a solution to that problem, but we know that we have a tool set within our team to really tackle that. And so there is often a research aspect to that where there's an exploratory piece of every project where we're looking for ways to solve the problem, and where we start may not be where we necessarily end. And that's really where the problem solving comes in, is, how can we use the data science, AI, machine learning tools at our disposal to come up with a creative way to solve that problem, and one which eventually can be implemented at scale, to solve the media problems we're seeing across the industry. So there's an opportunity there to really provide value through the application of that unique solution that didn't exist before. And, the approach we often take is really look for ways to build momentum. Look for ways that we can show that we can at least incrementally solve the problem in a better way that has been done before, and use that momentum to take it even further and make even bigger improvements over time.
Amazing. So the origins of these ideas that you have, is that from Freewheel and incubating some good creative ideas and then presenting it to Comcast as a parent company, or is it top down? Hey guys, these are our problems. You're the experts. Go solve it.
Yeah, I would say it can come from either way, and we see both. There are some data savvy business folks who recognize that a problem they're facing could be solved with the application of some expertise in the data science space. And that's great when those type of problems come to us. What we try to do, though, is we realize there's a certain level of data science expertise that you need to realize that data science can solve certain types of problems. And the only way to bring those to the forefront is to make sure that the data scientists and data analytical people who are working on those problems are exposed to the business context as much as possible, to give them an opportunity to see, okay, here's an area where we could apply certain of the types of things we do that a person in the business may or may not recognize. And so we try to expose problems from both ways, from the business side, and we can do that by educating them as well to say, hey, here are the types of things this group does. Would love to hear some of your pain points. And on the other side is just keeping the data scientists and others exposed to the business as much as possible so that they can surface some of these opportunities.
I think it's a very important point, because there can be a tendency for data scientists to just jump straight into the problem, put the headset on and focus on building models and answering questions. But if they don't get that exposure, they could be solving the wrong problem and go down a rabbit hole and not giving any ROI, which is ultimately the most important thing. Absolutely.
Here at Alldus, we want to make the hiring process easier for all. Whether you're an employer or an aspiring employee, we have the service for you. For full-time work, Alldus will partner with you to find the best person for the position. Using both our network and our rigorous qualification process, we ensure that only the best talent is shortlisted. We will manage the process and work with you to select our most suitable candidate for your organisation. We also offer excellent temp hiring services. At Alldus, we provide a great opportunity to help you and our candidate make the right choice. The contract period is one long interview for your full-time opening, and the extended experience with our consultant helps you make the best decision. Alldus International is here to quickly help you find the best AI candidate. Our experts stay in close contact with our consultants throughout the duration of the contract, ensuring they have everything they need to get the job done.
You've built many teams, you've been in a leadership role for quite some time now. Broadly speaking, what advice do you give to people who come in, whether it's when they join your team or in a general setting, to navigate the industry? You've already touched on one point there, but what else would be the things that you focus on?
Certainly when you're hiring, technical skills are important, right? And you're seeing a lot more people that have sort of the core set of data science and analytical skills out there compared to what you did years ago, because there's a lot more educational programs out there, so a lot more university programs out there. So the thing that really differentiates candidates is often their willingness to dig into sort of the business context of the problem, to sort of ask a lot of questions around, why the problem is there, where the data came from, what the data represents, versus simply applying, the latest and greatest algorithm that they've uncovered through their research. The technical piece is important, but like you said before, without a deep understanding of the context, you could be solving the wrong problem. And so a lot of that, I think, is what separates candidates. The other thing is, as part of that, we like to see candidates who, rather than just jump in and start applying algorithms, start off with an exploratory approach. They identify gaps in the data. They identify areas of questions to ask for those who are sitting within the business that may uncover possible paths to solve that problem. Not everybody, particularly students who are right out of school, will do that, but it shows a level of curiosity that I think can help separate those folks.
Really useful. Focusing now on your team and how you've built a team. So I want to get some insight into your opinion on how you go about building a successful data science team and how you manage it. What's your management style? How do you get the best out of your group?
Yeah. First and foremost, we try to hire some of the brightest people we can find. We have a very talented group of folks here. I think as you're building a team, certainly there's technical skills, but you want to look for sort of diversity across the team, right? Not everybody you don't want the whole team to have the same exact skill set necessarily, but you want them to be able to collaborate with each other and sort of fill in strengths and weaknesses with each other. So I think that diversity of experience and skill sets is important. I think the common thing we look for is sort of a problem-solving mentality, right? That whatever, more than anything, more than data science, their job is really to solve the problems that are given to them. And often these problems are problems that have never been solved before, right? And so there's not something out of a textbook that you can find that solves that. But the question is, how do I use the tool set I have available to me to try to structure this problem in a way that I know I can tackle it? And so I think, problem-solving skills, willingness to sort of dig in, like I said, to the context, and then having folks who work well in a team, who can collaborate with others who may have other skill sets that they don't have. I think those are the most important.
Absolutely. And I think that last point is a skill in itself, just like coding, how proficient you can get with a language. Your ability to network and communicate and collaborate may not be something that's naturally a strength of a data scientist, but it can be worked on. Following on from this, looking at the team you've built and your interview style and what you look for, you've interviewed a large number of candidates over the last few years. Tips, pointers, suggestions on how candidates can interview more effectively?
Oftentimes when a company goes through an interview process, and you hear about these types of questions all the time, it's not always about, did I get the exactly right answer to what they're expecting? It's more about showing the thought process and how you got to the answer. So whether it's a business case study or some technical problems, I think illustrating your thought process sometimes we could expose candidates. We'll interview candidates outside the media space, right? And so in those cases, there's not an expectation that you understand the media space coming in. There is a hope, though, that as you're exposed to media type problems, you dig into that. You do some research, some learning to, like I said, get a deep understanding of the context to the extent you can. So I think, showing a high level of effort and interest in the interview process is one. I think showing the ability to dig in an exploratory way and ask great questions is another piece. And then certainly demonstrating the technical skills that allow you to get to the answer, I think is important as well.
The important thing to highlight there, none of what you said is based on how proficient an individual is with a particular skill set or tool. Yeah. It's all about the mindset and the approach to it, which is great advice, and it's something that can be worked on regardless of skill set.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is technology and the tools available to us are changing so quickly that if you're proficient in one today, we may not be using it next year. So the important thing is that you're a demonstrated great problem solver, that you can come up quick on the learning curve as these technologies make themselves available to us. And then you have a willingness to take that on and learn it.
Excellent. I want to switch slightly before we finish, just taking it back to your role, your industry, how it's changed so dramatically in the last few years, driven by technology. Poses a lot of challenges, but also very exciting. What are you most excited about the future of technology, particularly in your industry?
Yeah, well, it's such an exciting space to be in now, because of how quickly it's changing. And like you said, that does create tremendous technology opportunities. Like I said, think about how people are consuming television in the broadest sense today is very different than it was 5 years ago. I don't expect 10 years from now it will resemble what it does today either. And so I think the thing that will be consistent across that time is, advertising is going to be a part of that ecosystem. And for us to develop better ways to connect advertisers and agencies with that advertising inventory at scale, within this premium video space, there's a huge opportunity there. And there's so much of the latest technology that is involved in how that gets done that it just makes it a great space to be in.
Yeah, within media, within advertising, it's survival of the fittest. Yeah. You've got to be at the forefront of technology. So for people within data, it means you're going to be working with, first of all, huge data sets. Mm-hmm. Secondly, you're going to be looking at innovation and advancement. So yes. For aspiring analysts, engineers, scientists, you really should be looking at media and advertising, because it's a place where you will get a lot of exposure, learn a lot along the way.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's a very competitive space. Yeah. But that competition is what's driving a lot of the innovation today.
Absolutely.
But as a technologist, that's where you want to be. Right? Definitely. You want to be at the forefront of that.
Definitely. Bob, this has been an absolute pleasure. I really appreciate your time.
Great. Thank you.
Get the Alldus advantage. Become a member of the Alldus community and enjoy some of the following: AI meetups. Once a month, our community gathers to listen to some of the leading experts in the world of data science and AI. Our speakers come from all over the world, including Dublin, Boston and Frankfurt. We also have our AI mentors. Our experts will provide mentoring to Alldus members. And don't forget our AI in Action podcast. Each week we have guests from all over the world talking us through their education, career and more. Become an Alldus member and get the Alldus advantage. For more information and to sign up for our newsletter, log on to www.alldus.com. That's www.alldus.com. Alldus International, empowering through AI.